It's kind of a weird business to wake up one day and get into this space.
I mean, collecting bookies' odds and selling it back to them, it's pretty cool.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jason Trost, the host of the Business of Betting podcast. I am joined today with the Chief Revenue Officer of TXODDS, Thomas McGrath. Welcome to the podcast, Thomas.
Thank you very much, Jason. A long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thanks very much. So what brings you to this podcast today?
TXODDS, we're in our 25th year, and I was pushed out there to start talking about what we're up to, what we've been doing, and what we're trying to achieve while doing it. So, yeah.
We're a customer. I don't know if we're currently a customer, but we have been a long-time customer of TXODDS.
Formerly, yeah.
Formerly of a customer. And what I know you guys as is basically an odds aggregation tool. So maybe, why don't you start by talking about like how the founder got into this business? Because it's kind of a weird business to wake up one day and get into this space. And why don't you talk about the founding story a little bit about TXODDS?
I mean, collecting bookies' odds and selling it back to them, it's pretty cool. But yeah, no, he was working, A&R was working in a betting exchange, and then our other founder partner, Carrie, I think he had built the software that was collecting the odds, and then the two of them joined forces, and what would have been kind of just site scraping, odds collecting, pre-match odds software started then. And we still have that feed. That feed still powers probably maybe 50, 60 customers. It hasn't changed. It collects like 40 sports, 300 bookmakers. That still exists. That's our generation 1 feed. Then when in-play betting started in 2006, 2007, we would have started collecting the big Asian bookmakers' prices from there and sold them then to kind of like part of the automation journey with all the big books in Europe. So your William Hills, your 365s, your Ladbrokes would have taken Sing Bets, Asian handicap lines, put them into their models and started automating the process then. That was our generation 2 feed. We then put a push feed onto it, expanded sports. And then during COVID, we added a new feed again, which is our fusion feed, which has all the bells and whistles and player props and everything else on there. So yeah, we've 25 years we're like companies as old as the online gaming industry, and we have every single price that's ever passed through the system saved. So it's kind of like a modeler's toolkit, like every opening and closing Premier League price from the 99-2000 season to basically every game that's ever been played in running in soccer. And yeah, it's a big company now as well. I was like interested in what you know about us, because like you say, like odds aggregator, is that it? Like, how did you come across us? Because let's say I was treating this as a sales conversation. Like we don't really do debt by PowerPoint around like that, but I would always ask like, how did you come across us? Or like, what do you know about us? So then like I talk more about what's apt to what you want to know, and work back from there. So you guys, like with Hansen play, are you able is talking about Hansen? Is it well known that, yeah, I never put 2 and 2 together. We've worked with so many syndicates or private groups that like, I'm always afraid to say stuff out loud. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. We have our own syndicate. We talk about it. It's called Hansen. Yeah. I think we're the world's largest market maker in sports. If we're not the world's largest, we're one of the world's largest. We market make pretty much all sports 24 hours a day, and we've gotten pretty good over the years. And one of our main models is a technical trading model. It's looking at the prices on other sports books and other exchanges and trying to make sense of that, taking a view on those prices. And, we use TXODDS to try to get more depth to our model so that we could be sharper on the prices. So that's what we use it for. So as far as my impression of TXODDS is, it's basically an odds aggregation platform that you pay for. Am I missing anything? Do you have anything else?
No, we are live odds, historical odds, and now we are scouting in stadium, college basketball.
Are you doing data origination now?
Data, yeah. But it's always been data origination. It's just, it's our database of data. But yeah, I know what you mean.
You're trying to move into the sort of the sport radar realm where you're providing like when goals are happening, or Are you doing goal stuff like when you're doing in stadium?
So college football, American football, that is, not soccer, and college basketball. Yeah, we started in August 2024. We've just completed a season of each sport with the culmination of the college basketball tournaments now.
Just to be provocative here, because it's more interesting. Like, we've been a long-time customer of TXODDS, and I think there was two issues that we had. One, we had what we call, I mean, I don't know if this is an industry term or not, but there's a lot of soft pricing in sports betting, meaning that bookmakers will put up a price, but they're not really willing to stand up risk behind that. And so we found a lot of the prices that we were getting from TXODDS were not, I don't know what you would call them, maybe more indicative prices rather than real prices. And sports books were being a little bit, for lack of a better word, soft with the pricing. And the second thing that we noticed about TXODDS is that there wasn't a lot of coverage, or at least long tail coverage. I mean, there was pretty good, the big markets and the big sporting events were well covered, but the longer tail stuff wasn't covered as well. What's your take on, I guess there's an infinite amount of sports that you can have and an infinite amount of theoretical markets. Like, how do you view the world on, like, are you trying to be all odds for all markets, for all sports all the time? Are you trying to focus on like the top 50 markets per sports for all, like, how do you approach that problem?
So it would have been, and it still probably is, like, we would have a very good outlay. So our main focus would be on the primary markets. So what markets allow you to power a model that allow you to create derivative odds, and how do we get that 100% accurate in real time and keep that going? And our kind of generation 2, generation 3 push feed would have ran into problems. And this is why we built our new fusion service, would be because back in 2006, 2007, when in-play betting started, there was only really Asian handicaps, money line, 1x2, over-unders, and that's all we need to focus on. Now, things obviously changed. People wanted more and more. That's when we kind of upgraded our service to Fusion so we could allow for player props and allow for other stuff like that. But like, we're picking up like 60 bookmakers in soccer pre-match and in-play. Like, to be in-play viable, it needs to be second, sub-second. And we're focusing on the stuff that kind of moves the dials, not necessarily like, will team B score 6 goals in the next 10 minutes or some random market like that. So there's always edge cases where people, and you guys were integrated onto our older service. So the limitations of that wouldn't have allowed us to have been as granular as what you needed. That has largely since passed. And I know the tech team are probably, if they're ever watching this, they're going to kill me for saying it, but like, there's technically no market type that we can't deliver or that we shouldn't be able to deliver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So like, the way it works is the robot extracts the data. And again, why our legacy feeds, which like, we still have huge amount of customers on our push feed, and their rationale for not moving or not upgrading is, this serves us completely perfectly well. We don't need it for anything else. And there's a bit of back and forth as to why we're trying to move them on. And then you have to torpedo a roadmap to replace a service with a service that they're quite happy with. And it's a good problem to have, but still, we want to crack on with things internally. But our generation 2 feed would have had a database. So we extract all the data, then the robots try to push it through the database, and the database is like, yep, this is a 1x2, this is the money line, blah, blah, blah. And then anything else that didn't fit the schema just got left behind. Whereas now it's server to server. So the robots, like, once we map it up, we could technically send a market.
And then the last thing, while I'm criticizing your company on the podcast here, the last thing was, you didn't have a web front end so that you could see all the markets. You had to use some kind of Java client to connect and stream everything. And that was always quite janky. Have you guys fixed that, or do you still make clients?
We pride ourselves in being an API only company.
API or die?
We give you the ingredients for you to bake the cake. That's the line I like to. But no, we do have a UI. We do have a front end. We have listened to the shouting.
You know, when I bake cakes, I like to look at the picture of what I'm about to bake before I bake it.
You productize our stuff. You do what you need to do with it and tell me about it later on. No, we do have a UI. That came. It's still not perfect. Still work in progress, but we have some really good UI developers and a good team of UI guys now that are making, we had to, especially for the scout and stuff that we're doing in the stadium, like, have to package it all up and have a trader UI for clients and stuff like that as well.
Okay. So a few questions about your corner of the industry. So every time I go to a sports betting conference, every time there's an odds feed provider that I've never heard of. And I would say anytime I'm at ICE, I want to say like off the top of my head, there's probably like 30 or 40 vendors that are saying they're selling live odds. Now, I imagine a lot of it's like repackaged stuff, but can you kind of break down the overall market? Like how many odds providers are there in the world? How many of them are significant and at scale and good enough? And talk to me a little bit about the market, because even though I've been in this market for umpteen years, I don't know the landscape from your side of the fence.
Yeah, I think on a pure, we're gone in stadium, we're scouting and it's a good vertical, but we're TXODDS, like we've focused on odds. We've never really focused on anything else, like live odds, historical odds. We haven't gone around. And the reason like we've got to do what we do for 25 years and, you know, have the biggest names as customers and work with these people is because we're not scraping scoreboards. We're not doing anything that is in the eyes of the law either frowned upon or questionable. I'm not the best to keep track of who our competitors are. They pop up every now and again, but what kind of gives us the edge is like we are independently owned. We're like, you know, we don't have private equity group backing us or there's nothing like that. We're not up for sale. We're not going around shaking the bucket to the marketplace. And we have customers that have been with us like 20 plus years, and it gives people the stability to build products off those APIs that we push down, and we kind of get the trust there. Like you have like Radar, Genius. Yes, they have odds feeds, but they also have like, what is odds? What Radar really trying to sell you? No, there's a million other products that fall under that radar. What does the landscape look like? They constantly surprise me too. Sometimes I'll get thrown a counter. Maybe I'll make a proposal to someone and say, oh, well, X is doing it cheaper. And I'm like, well, far away. Like I can't beat that price, but yeah.
Okay, so take your business. Where are you getting your prices from? Is it with permission or without permission in using scraping mechanisms?
The permission thing, like, so we do have a ethical collection policy. If your website is behind a paywall like a login screen, I will come to you and I'll have a chat and you can try work out something. But if anyone asks for that sort of a website to be featured, we don't sell by the book, right? We don't offer a bootleg service. If someone comes on and say, oh, I'm only interested in Bet365, well, then point you towards Stoke. It's no interest to us. We sell market feeds, and the market is the market. And we sell them by the sport, or you can have all the sports or whatever it is. And if that bookmaker is on there, then sure, but it's of no real value to us. Like if someone's only interested in one bookmaker, then it gets a bit creaky. Like it's not going to be a good relationship, and we will generally not entertain that sort of request.
So what's the vision of what do the next 10 years look like for the company?
We want to conquer the in-play stuff or the scouting service that we're doing. So I'm here 8 years, and I think I was kind of I used to work for Stats Perform, look after betting syndicates and Running Ball and Opta. And then before that, I was in BetDAC. And I think I was kind of brought in to, maybe I wasn't, but in my head, I have a look at what the event data landscape was and how we get involved in it. And we tried fairly hard to buy event data so we could create our own products. You know, we're a big piece of the data chain. We're like odds have even an underlying odds feed have a big part of what the output is, right? So if we could add some event data to it, then we could productize and build some more. And then it was always seen as like a cannibalizing feature for the data providers. So we skirted around and we looked like, did we buy a platform or what did we do? And there was for the size of American sports, when you looked at the college landscape and the college data landscape, it was really poorly underserved. You have like companies that are collecting the data and they're riddled with legacy technology issues. You know, like if you look at what NFL are collecting and distributing, or what the NBA, and it's a really rich data set, and it's just something very, very different to what the college scene looked like. And then you had guys like, take someone like Simplebet, who didn't have a micro betting product without the data set that they went out there and collected themselves and used that to create their products. And the reason they had to go out there and collect it themselves is because the data didn't exist. We kind of wanted to capture, like, again, going back to, we give you the ingredients, you bake the cake. Like, how do we allow for innovation in the US gambling space specifically? That's because we wanted to collect something that we could collect 100% of, like us going in and collecting, 20,000 soccer matches. We weren't solving any problems. Like no one wanted me knocking on the door saying, hey, do you want Kazakhstan Division 2? You can buy it off us instead of them. Whereas took a different approach. We're collecting kind of the goal was so that someone like Simplebet or a microbetting or someone that's new to that sort of innovation area, like that they could be customers of ours. So what did they need to satisfy that? What were the data points that they needed? And then we looked at it again. It was like, right, so how do we add player data on there? So we have one guy in stadium, we've one guy in an office in Chicago, and he's watching the stream and he's collecting not every action on field, but like who threw the ball, who blocked that, who performed the steal, etc. And
so what data are you collecting now? I'm a little bit unclear on that.
So for football, we're collecting like every drive. So snap, possible rush, possible pass, etc. What the outcome of that was.
And you're doing this with a human in stadium.
Yes.
And what's the goal with this data? Like, besides, what cake do you want people to bake with this?
Well, like you look at service and like, let's take 365, who have probably been the most innovative brand in the world, and anything that they put on there, people want. And then, you know, you look at maybe they're using a third party for their micro betting or their player props or whatever it is. And what do they need to do it themselves? They need a data set that doesn't exist, basically.
So what data set are you I'm unclear, like what data are you originating that doesn't exist already?
The play-by-play stuff in football, in college football, college basketball.
Oh, that's not possible to get.
Yeah, it does not exist.
Oh, I see. So you're the first ones, or at least the first ones you know of, that are providing that data.
To productize in the B2B environment, yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't really, but that exists for NFL, I assume.
Yeah, because the NFL are collecting it, and Genius are distributing it.
Okay, so how do you ramp? Like, what is that? Talk to me about the operations of that. Like, do you hire a bunch of drunk college kids and give them an iPad, or how does that work?
Not drunk. We got like some really strict vetting that goes on. I think this time last year we didn't have an office. We started the lease in April. We didn't advertise for a scout until after the July 4th weekend. So I think it was July the 8th. And since then, we've had 13,000 applicants. We have maybe 350 fully trained scouts. We covered maybe 95% of FBS, and we were 100% coverage from like game week 6. And we have like, let's say 350 live scouts. We got a QA team. We got maybe a head count of 100, 110, 120 in Chicago. And they're part-time analysts, full-time analysts, supervisors, QA, operations. It's a full kind of around-the-clock services. Basically double the size of the business in the last year.
And then do you want to go to other sports, or are you screwing with the cake recipe right now before you try to do other sports?
We'll do other sports. We've built out the tool that we can collect a couple of more sports. We're going to try specialize in, I think, like just enriching or liberalizing the college sports data scene. Certainly, again, providing a data set that wasn't previously available and, you know, seeing what comes of it.
So you're originating college sports data and you want to get into other sports. Well, that's exciting. I mean, my perspective on sports data is that it's incredibly messy. It's incredibly expensive. And, you know, as a customer of all the big providers, whether it's Genius, Sport Radar, it's amazing how much we pay. It's amazing how bad the quality is. I mean, the amount of APIs, different APIs that Bet Genius and Sport Radar have boggles the mind. And for as much money as we pay, I would say the error rate is pretty high. So to me, it's like ripe for disruption. But short of building your own scout network, I'm not really sure how you disrupt it. Do you have any thoughts about that? Do you have to originate a scout network to sort of start challenging the existing sport data?
Yeah, look, it's worked for us. And I think what's helped us is, you know, we've had the luxury of time. The other providers, you know, they've probably known how technology works in this space. They built it for soccer, then they added basketball, then they added volleyball. And they did that 15, 16 years ago. And they got loads of integrations, and then they're powering an MTS, or they're doing whatever it is that they're doing with it internally. And for them to change the schema of the data so dramatically like we've done, it's just, how do you do that? Like, how do you tell 100 people that they need to migrate over and then keep 2 systems up and everything else? And then downstream of it, if it's powering their MTS and it's perfectly fine for what it is, then do they really care? I don't know. But like, I don't want to get into a bashing scenario. I'd happily work with these people for them to consume our data the same way that they've worked with other federations that have a different data set to what they're used to sending out. Like, and that's pretty much like the luxury of time has been helpful in this scenario. And there are operators in the US that do need a different data set to serve the requirements of what they want to chop up, like be it across like, keeping SGPs open for longer in play, or being able to fast settle player stuff, or, what the micro market stuff. To take that in house and do it yourself needs a different data set.
I'm curious how it all shakes out, because it just all sports data is incredibly messy. I mean, there's stuff we really liked about TXODDS and stuff we didn't like so much about TXODDS. And it's just, it's hard to imagine that in 10 years it's going to be the same, but maybe it will just be the same, or it'll be just expensive and cumbersome, and sports bettors just...
We're not in it to make it expensive. We're in it to do a good job. Like, I'm not going to go out there and spend 100 million on some random betting property that you need and then, charge you like for volleyball and everything else just to pay for all that. We're in it to solve a problem, to be useful to our customers. And I think we had 4 paying customers for March Madness when we only launched the service in August. So it's been taken up well.
Cool. And what's your take on the existing state of the industry? What do you want to see happen over the next, say, 1 to 2 years?
I don't know. Yeah, I want more customers for this because it's bloody expensive to set up a...
Now, don't start overcharging for the volleyball.
No. We don't overcharge. We could be at a fair amount, and we've had very little pushback, to be fair.
Charge just the right amount.
We don't want to be the people that overcharge. We like being useful, and what does the next 1-2 years look like? I have no idea. Who's still around? Who drops off? Who's in the Deadpool for the next 12 months?
Who's next up in your Deadpool?
No, not dead. I'm trying to sell to all these people. They're my friends. What does the CFTC stuff looks like? Like, does a European exchange take a stab at the US because, it's a cheaper cost of entry? Like, what's that look like for you?
I like the sound of that. We're looking closely at CFTC stuff ourselves, so I find it very interesting.
Well, you have the technology. It's a way lower cost of entry. It makes sense, Maybe then you'd be knocking on my door looking for cheaper event data or better event data, not cheaper.
Maybe you have a front-end interface so I can look at what I'm...
We do. I have a front-end interface. That's solved. That was a particular bugbear of mine as well. Don't worry. Then what does, further afield, what does horse racing, horse racing and greyhound racing is a big part of our product. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, horse racing's got it. I mean, it's probably take another 100 years, but it's dying a death. I mean, it's going out of favor. I can't see people going to horse races in 50 years.
Really?
No. Do you?
Yeah, I love horses. That's why if I'm retiring, it's to a farm full of horses.
Yeah, I mean, but the attendance just attendance goes down year over year. I love a good horse race too. I mean, every time I go to a horse race, it's a nice day out, but I mainly go for professional reasons. And when you're choosing between a horse race and the other 50 things that you can do, it's it rarely makes the top 20.
What's frightening to me, and I have a group of friends and we buy horses and, we're involved with a racehorse trainer in the UK, and he has had a license since the 60s. And during COVID, when they were, do we put back on racing? What do we do? He couldn't get into his head that his whole livelihood, this multi-billion pound or euro ecosystem was just betting content, and how they treat it at the moment. And it's ripe for someone, but it's like an old boys club as well. It's so hard to get into. It's in a strange place.
It's a great sport, but it just feels like, it's from another era.
Yeah, I don't agree. But anyway, yeah, I love it. That's where all my hard-earned spare cash goes on.
And do you see a return, or is it a labor of love?
Both. I love it. I had some luck, missed out some big things, but yeah.
I'm sure it's a fascinating world, but I don't know. I'd like to see sports betting rationalized. I think it's the fact that people pay around 10% per bet just blows my mind. And, in 2025 with technology and databases and blah, 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 you would think that sports betting would rationalize and get more efficient over time, and it hasn't happened. I think it will happen, whether it's us or somebody else. I think it'll happen. And I'm curious to see.
I'm from Ireland, and none of my friends know anything other than Paddy Power. So yeah, it also blows my head. It's just the convenience of supply. It's just there.
Well, you should tell them there's other sports books out there.
Yeah, try it. Do you know that there's people out there that call smarkets S-markets?
I am aware, yes.
How did that happen?
To be honest, I think if you don't pay attention to the word very much, it could look like S markets, because markets like that SM, there's very few words in the English language that are SM. There's smart and a few other words, but SM is quite a rare combination of consonants together. So I think because of that, and there's a lot of blank mart, like Walmart, Kmart. There's a lot of those type businesses. So I think it's not that illogical, but we say markets.
Yeah, me too.
There you go. Well, before I let you go, Thomas, what do you want to be when you grow up besides a horse breeder?
Beside a horse breeder, bred my first horse this year, so that was fun. And apart from ringing the bell on TXODDS at some stage, it would probably be horses. Yeah, I come from a farming background, so I would like to turn some of my dad's land into paddocks and try and have a crack at that. Sustainably rehome, raise horses. There's a lot of stuff.
That sounds very doable to me. So it sounds like a nice dream.
It's not a dream. I'm 38. I'm 37, turning 38. I got time.
All right. Well, thanks very much for stopping by. Best of luck rolling out TXODDS into the data origination space, and all the best.
Thank you very much, lads. Speak to you soon.
The Business of Betting podcast is presented by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. 4 out of the top 5 U.S. operators personalize player experiences with Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming industry. Learn more about Optimove by requesting a demo at optimove.com/businessofbetting. And if you like what you see, you will get your first month free.